Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a very special CoinGeek Weekly live stream. It is not bi-weekly. It is not bi-monthly. In fact, it is not typically twice weekly, but we are doing a very special show today on this delightfully warm, at least in South Florida, Thursday afternoon. We are doing an introduction to a man who few know, but few or more. Let's see. No, I screwed that up now. He's been around for a long time, but not nearly well known as he deserves to be. In fact, I've only known him pretty casually for a couple of years, like a tweet here and there, this kind of thing. But he is in a very critical role. He has years of experience in software development. He was at nChain for an amount of time and is now the man in the captain's chair on the technical side of stuff over at the Bitcoin Association or BSV Bitcoin. I don't know what they're called anymore. But anyways, he's a dude who is focused heavily on the next phase of infrastructure going forward in the BSV ecosystem. Now, I know there's a few people that kind of wear that hat or have worn that hat in the past. And there will probably be other people to wear that hat in the future. In 100 years after we've all retired, there will be new people in these seats. But in the meantime, we have a gentleman named Jad Wabab. Some of you may know who he is. He is, in social channels and around the, around the ecosystem. You can access him, but even myself, like I roughly knew who he was, but I didn't talk to him nearly as much as I should have. And now it's funny, we have a phone call like once every couple of days, it seems like, as we're working through all kinds of interesting stuff. So I'm going to keep things light. Alex, do we have an ad before we come to Mr. Wahab? Okay, I got a yes. So we're going to cut to an ad, and we will come back with Jad Wabab, and let's play the ad.
This May, in Dubai, the BSV Global Blockchain Convention will bring together communities and unveil new breakthrough technologies. You'll be ushered into a world of collaboration and innovation where you can network with hundreds of expert practitioners, pioneer thinkers, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs. Learn from forward-thinking brands and startups. Discover functional applications that enhance end-user experiences and create value and utility. The BSV Global Blockchain Convention is your gateway to engaging with scalable on-chain solutions and building long-lasting business partnerships. Turn ideas into reality. Propel your business forward. Join us at the BSV Global Blockchain Convention, May 24 to 26 in Dubai.
Hey, Jad.
Hey, Kurt. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. So I'm from Chicago. So when I see your name, it's Jad, which is like the worst possible accent to say your name in, I'm sure. But I just
not the worst. I've had much worse.
Well, I mean, if I was Dutch, I'd be calling you like Yad all day, right?
Yeah. I had one Asian person call me Zad or Zar somehow.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's worse. What is the right way to say your name, though?
It's Jad.
Jad? Okay. A little bit of a soft J in there?
It's like an Arabic name. So there's no like Jad, like Chad. But whatever works. I'm not too bothered, to be honest.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. I get like, I've had that last name that other people have struggled to say my whole life. I'm always a little bit like, all right, I get it. So, all right, let's start real quick. What's your Bitcoin story? How did you get into Bitcoin? What is all of that? Like, I'm always curious what you thought of it when you first heard of it and how you ended up now being a professional in the space.
Yeah. I don't really have like a story where I first like heard about it in like 2012 or whatever. I heard about it in like 2016, and that was like the first time I didn't even know Bitcoin existed before. And then so I had a friend in Lebanon who was he took a economics course with Saifuddin Ammous, the guy who wrote the Bitcoin standard and more recently the fiat standard. And this was back in Beirut in Lebanon, and he was like getting people into Bitcoin in Beirut and stuff, and that was before like the financial crisis. So I found out about that, and then started falling deeper in the rabbit hole with Austrian economics, sound money, human action, time preference, all of that stuff, and then and then it was just like consuming most of my time. I was just like, I just wanted to learn more about it, and I just thought Bitcoin was like the most important thing anyone could be working on. So it was just like spending most of my time on it. Then I decided to get a master's at UCL here in London, which was extremely valuable. It was the master's was around applied cryptography, so it was all around Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of that kind of stuff. There's really, really good professors. My supervisor, Jens Groth, wrote the algorithms for Zcash, the new algorithm for Zcash and stuff. And I don't know if you remember as well, the Nicolas Courtois from the famous BBC interview with Craig.
Wonderful.
He taught me as well a couple of courses there, which was fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then so I got into all sorts of different blockchains, and at the time I was doing some research on Lightning Network, Ethereum, Hyperledger, and then everything. I even did a bit of work on IOTA, funnily enough.
Nice.
And then then basically found like Craig at that time. This was like 2017 when there was like the SegWit 2x, all of that, the block wars, the block size debates, and all of that stuff happening. And then I was doing some research on the Lightning Network, and I was going to get more involved. And I found Craig's presentations and talking about the whole Strangler fig and all that stuff. It just made a lot of sense. It's obviously when I first saw Craig, I was like the BBC stuff, and you always get stuff taken out of context.
Sure.
Then I started looking more deeply into a lot of this stuff. Made sense. Basically I wanted to join nChain. That was like a year later, during the hash wars stuff, and at that time it wasn't that easy to get into nChain. There's no HR, so no one replied to me on the website when I submit my application and stuff. And then it was cool. I went to the CoinGeek conference right after the hash war. It was like almost empty then. It was cool. I met Joshua Hensley there, Degan, a few people. It was good. And then I met Jimmy and Owen, and that's how I met the research team, and then joined nChain research for a bit, and then moved over to software engineering for a couple of years, and then now BA.
Incredible. I mean, what a story. So before we cut into like the cool stuff you're up to now, I'm curious, what was it like working inside of nChain? I know there's multiple teams. It's a big group. I think there's about 200 people on staff. Is it the kind of company where you kind of know everybody, or do you only sort of know the people you're interacting with in your core group?
So I started at nChain in the beginning of 2019. So I know it's not a long time, but for nChain's life, it feels like a really long time.
I mean, in Bitcoin, right? It sounds like forever ago.
Yeah. So when I first joined nChain, I think there was around maybe 40 people, 35, 40 people, or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I pretty much know almost everyone there. There are a lot of new people joining. So especially during COVID and everything, everyone's working remotely. So there's many people who've never been working with each other, have never met each other in person. But I guess it's not really unique to nChain.
For sure. Well, very cool. So you've recently made the transition over to Bitcoin Association, and there's been some shakeup. There's been a lot of new faces at a lot of places in the BSV ecosystem, which I support. Frankly, we had a lot of faces of people that were doing a lot of good work, interesting work. No criticisms of anybody, but I think a breath of fresh air is always a good thing, and it's always something I'm excited about. So, um, what has that transition been like, and what is your mandate at Bitcoin Association today?
Yeah, so Bitcoin Association. Anyway, the whole thing with nChain and Bitcoin Association kind of developed in a weird way. So right after the BCH and BSV fork, there was like this big gap which had to be filled, and kind of nChain stepped in that role. They weren't really planning to do a lot of that stuff. For example, when BCH BSV4, there was no block explorer, for example. What's on chain? Simon Liam and they basically and Mo put it together really quickly. So then nChain had to do some work around infrastructure, and they were kind of juggling, doing products and services, and then they had to do some stuff on infrastructure. So then it got a bit complicated. So that's when sort of BA started to take over some of the infrastructure stuff, and more recently, BA needed more like technical, people involved. So that's how I got more involved as well.
Brilliant. And so today, what is your title at Bitcoin Association?
Director of Engineering.
Director of Engineering. So you and I have been talking quite a bit about the LiteClient, which is sort of the centerpiece of why you're on here, is to explain a little bit of like what direction are we going. And this is an increasingly complex situation, as we've seen Coinomy wallet, we've had Edge wallet, we've seen consistent exchanges being like, man, we just can't keep our node in sync. Like, how do we even make this work? And this is all stuff that we've predicted. We've been very sort of high and mighty the last 3 years, like, if you can't run a node, you don't deserve to run a node. But now it's like, okay, hold on. So now we actually do need people to interface with the chain in a way that is, like I think a lot of people very egotistically are like, well, SPV, as if that's just like a thing you copy and paste into reality. Maybe you can,
I wish it were the case.
Me too. Let me tell you. What is LiteClient? Like, I guess in a very basic sense, like what is LiteClient in 100 words or something?
So yeah, basically what we're releasing right now is the LiteClient toolbox. And so just to make that distinction between LiteClient and LiteClient toolbox, so what we're releasing at this stage is just a toolbox of like modular components, libraries, different services that allow easier LiteClients on the network. And what a LiteClient is basically what used to be called like a SPV node. It's just LiteClients. Sounds a lot better, I think. So most of the work we've been doing is kind of naming stuff. So a majority of the work is just coming up with accurate names, because a lot of the names are really confusing for newcomers. For example, what's SPV, and specific things as well. What's BIP270? What's Paymail? That kind of thing, and coming up with the right terms for people to understand things quickly was probably the hardest thing, because people coming in to the space, they have like a different understanding of things, and then people who are in the space, they kind of have their own like definition of things, and they think everyone thinks the same way. So that's where a lot of the confusion comes in, and we try to sort of start off with some documentation tooling for a lot of the stuff that we've been working on. And I think it's really important. There's so many different people in the space who are kind of building their own bespoke like SPV stuff. And what we wanted to do is, because we've been doing this for a while as well at nChain and different companies, we wanted to put everything out there so everyone can sort of benefit from all the open source tools. They were open source. They always have been, but it's just, you know, they weren't really documented. No one was really aware of a lot of the stuff that was around there, and we want to put everything out there so that we can, you know, we can all build on the same sort of foundations.
Sure. No, and I think that's crucial. I think one of the things one of the things that really benefits like very scammy people in the crypto economy is to have a technical sounding name for what is ultimately a simple thing. And then it allows, you know, the kind of guys that are real good at you know, communicating on the Linux forums and you know, very comfortable in GitHub and using that lingo to act like, hey, this is a, you know, and SPV is a great, you know, like what is it? Is it an acronym? Is it a whatever? You know, like I know what it is because I'm a, you know, one of the nerds here, but for regular people, you know, I think even just saying LiteClient is a good start. It, you know, it's not going to be simple for everybody still, but to understand that like ultimately, unless you're participating in building blocks, which is the Bitcoin governance model, that you don't need to be running Bitcoin D and spend days synchronizing and all of this stuff. But can you explain a little bit like what is LiteClient in your opinion at scale? What does setting up the LiteClient look like to somebody who is, you know, for example, has a wallet business and they want to use LiteClient to fuel the transaction data and stuff to their wallet? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure the level of the audience, like how technical I should get. So I'm just going to try to keep it a pretty simple for now. But the way I sort of look at it, like the LiteClient is just like a timeline. You have like the chain of block headers, and the reason why it's called like a LiteClient is we wanted people to sort of understand that if you want to use the network, you don't need to run a node, especially if you just want to send and receive payments. You know, you could just run a LiteClient, like a client of the network. You know, resources is almost nothing in order to send and receive payments. You don't need to run this huge you know, like Bitcoin D server with everything. So basically, if you want to send and receive payments, a big sort of misconception we wanted to change is the earlier like SPV solutions. They use things like Bloom filters or stuff like that. But the key thing is that if I want to send you a payment, I send it directly to you. So it's a direct payment. It's a direct communication. I don't send it to the network and then have you crawl the whole network and index it to find that transaction. And there's obviously all sorts of, you know, ironically, it's the least private way you can do because, you know, everyone.
You're exposing
you give me an address.
Your data set, right?
You need to give me your address, and then you can't. You know, in the most private way to use Bitcoin is to not reuse addresses, and you know, it's really hard to do that if I'm sending you the transaction to the blockchain, and then you have to crawl the blockchain to find, you know, what addresses do you use to search. It's just like it's never going to work that way. Basically, if you want to do it in a way that's robust and private and scalable. So the right way is I would send you the transaction directly, and it's your responsibility to get that settled on the network. Same way as if I want to pay you using a check, you know, I write the check to you, I sign it, and then I I hand that to you, and then you get that settled on the network.
Sure. Hey, NFC, you can fork it if you want, but I would encourage you to read the license first. So, no, I don't think anybody's forking. Here's a comment from Jack Pitts, or question. I'll give you the cheat sheet. Majority of people don't know what BIP 270 is. SPV is actually pretty self-descriptive, and LiteClient seems to not only piss off CSW, but doesn't mean much to most. So I'm not aware of CSW's opinion of LiteClient, either in terminology or in function, but I am curious your feedback back to Mr. Pitts.
All right.
Sorry.
So the LiteClient was like, you know, the name obviously we run a lot of the stuff by Craig, so
Yeah.
yeah, so I know that it doesn't piss him off.
I was gonna say I don't
Yeah.
I usually get the memo when Craig gets pissed off about something.
Yeah, it would have it would have been clear.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about like what that means. Like in SPV, the way that I picture SPV actually functioning is you have a streaming UTXO set that can be filtered for whatever you need, but generally like the whole UTXO set would be available. And along with it comes Merkle proofs that allows you to say, okay, this is a valid transaction that appears in the blockchain somewhere up to a certain point. And from that data, you can extrapolate out whatever else you need. Now, that's more scalable because, like we said, you don't have to download, synchronize, and then filter like everybody's data. Like, why do I need to account for everybody else's payments? I really just kind of need mine and whoever else I'm doing business with. Is LiteClient built with that in mind specifically to filter out? Like what tools will be available to an exchange or a wallet developer or whatever on that front to just manage their data set?
Yeah. So the LiteClient toolbox, we kind of split it up into 4 main components. So the first component, you've got the wallet, which is basically key management and UTXO/fund management. And then the second component is the block headers client, which is the key thing. All you need is the chain of block headers, which are 80 bytes each every 10 minutes, which is like a few megabytes every year. It's very tiny.
Yeah.
And then the third one is what we're calling a bunch of peripheral services. So these allow easier direct communications. So if I want to send a payment to you, Kurt, my device has to be able to contact your device directly. So there are Craig always talks about IP to IP and IPv6 and IPv4 and all that stuff. So it gets a little bit complicated. And these peripheral services, including Paymail as well, they allow the wallet devices to easily discover each other, speak to each other and stuff. And that's where the fourth component, which are the standards, which define the API or the language that the devices can speak to each other. So it allows them to speak the same language. And this is where, for example, tokens can come in, because if a device wants to send payments to another device, if they're speaking this direct payment protocol language, it's kind of the same thing whether you want to send or receive a native Satoshis or any type of token. Right?
Like an op return token or whatever.
Yeah, like any one of the tokenized, STAS, RUN,
sure.
Sensible, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So for someone in the space who is used to running like, and really most people just run Bitcoin D. Can you explain real quickly what Bitcoin D is to somebody who has no idea what we're talking about?
Sure. So Bitcoin D is the Bitcoin node software. Like a monolith. It basically, you run it, it downloads everything from the blockchain, all the transactions, and verifies them, and everything there. So you're basically running everything from the start. You're collecting all of the transactions, and if you're not like mining, you're just like a listener node on the network. Could be useful for example, if you want to do some indexing of the blockchain, like searching data on the blockchain. If you want to offer services, for example, for people to easily search the blockchain or query data from the blockchain. So it's not that just the case that only miners can run nodes, and that you don't necessarily have to run a full node. You can run like a partial kind of node. This is where Craig talks about the whole Mandala network. Even miners can. It's because Bitcoin was designed in a very scalable way. A lot of stuff can be split out and specialized, and different. People can specialize in different things. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question about what.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So the total data set on like a full Bitcoin node is like 2 terabytes plus, a little more than 2 terabytes. And so comparatively, if you're running the LiteClient, as I understand it, last I checked, it's actually been a while, but the UTXO set is like 40 gigabytes or something near that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so the LiteClient, you don't even need the UTXO set.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting question from Nate. Why don't you call it a listener node instead of LiteClient? Can you explain?
Okay.
Well, actually, real quick, I can tell you the difference. A listening node is literally
two different things.
Right, you're running a full node, but it doesn't build blocks. So you are acting as a relayer or an aggregator or whatever. And then LiteClient is a completely different thing, frankly.
Yeah.
So real quick,
with LiteClient,
yeah.
Go on.
I was going to say it's the UTXO, or it is not the UTXO set even. So what exactly is LiteClient doing? What is it indexing? Can we drill into that a little deeper?
Yeah. So the listener node is completely different from the LiteClient. So with the LiteClient, all you need is the chain of block headers. You don't even need the UTXO set at all. So the way it works is if I want to send you a payment, I would send that transaction to you, and then you would have a connection to a miner. Mappy makes just a reliable connection. You could connect over the P2P network. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. You don't have to run a full node to connect to a node over the P2P network. But Mappy just makes it a much easier connection to a miner. You would send your transaction to the miners and then get back a Merkle proof. And then, that Merkle proof, you check that against your chain of block headers. You make sure it's in the longest chain. And that's how you're sure that your transaction has been settled, basically. You don't need to keep a copy of the UTXO set to verify that yourself. Sure. Services can offer that. And anyway, once you have the Merkle proof, you're sure that your transaction made it to the blockchain.
Brilliant. So then, if I wanted to, here's one of these criticisms that comes from the core guys. They're like, look, BSV is down to 16 nodes. Like, how soon till it's under 10 or whatever? Will the LiteClients count toward node metrics so that everybody can look at Blockchair and see more than 16 nodes, which I already know is false because we pull logs at Gorilla Pool and I know how many peers we have, and it is not 16. But will it count, or how would it be treated if you were to create a hierarchy of valuable endpoints on the network or something? What would you call it from an aggregation standpoint on a metric site like that?
Yeah, so I guess it would have to depend on the way the metrics are being collected. So you'd have to, it's up to CoinDance if they want to categorize that as a node or whatever, because on BTC they don't make any distinction between a mining node or a non-mining node, so it's already misleading there. So yeah, like a headers client will connect to the network over the P2P network. Instead of pulling all the transactions, it only pulls the block headers, basically.
Okay.
So in terms of the node count, it's actually, I would expect BSV to actually have even more quote unquote nodes than BTC because of the incentives. So what's the incentive for anyone to run a node or whatever on BTC? Is just out of the goodness of their heart to, altruism to support the network or whatever. Right. But on BSV, you got economic
revoked. So.
Yeah, I mean, you got economic incentive to run this stuff because people are going to pay you to, for example, index a blockchain or provide services and stuff like that. So, it just logically seems like it would be,
for sure.
You'd have more basically.
So for somebody who wanted to run a LiteClient, would it make sense for a normal person to run LiteClient for any reason? I'm just that cypherpunk guy and want it running on my system and whatever. I want to relay. Yeah. What am I doing? What's the download and sync time? What's the footprint from a hard drive standpoint? Do you know these specs at this point?
Yeah. So it's all the different services are basically Dockerized. They're tiny, a few megabytes. Anyway, the whole block, the block header chain is only a few megabytes as well. It was actually funny when we were basically publishing the Docker images for the block header client. We could have easily, just push the whole chain of block headers into the image itself. So you pull the image with all of the you can easily put with all of the chain. But basically, actually maybe let me give you a bit of history of how the whole LiteClient stuff started, and then you could get an idea of where this would be used and stuff like that. So basically at nChain, there were Andy and Steve were working on some designs for Paymail and SPV and peer channels or something like that. And then at that time, this was like last year or like a year and a half ago or something. And during COVID, I was in Lebanon, and there were like a bunch of capital controls and with the whole financial crisis, a lot of stuff there. So I wanted to get a Bitcoin ATM to Lebanon.
Sure.
And for people to be able to receive money easily without capital controls and cheaply and stuff like that. So I spoke to a couple of Bitcoin ATM providers, and obviously none of them supported BSV, but I actually reached out to a couple. They were very very receptive. It was pretty funny. On one of the calls, I speak to one guy. He's like really shocked. Thought, oh, BSV was that? I thought it was a fake Toshi status coin. Who is this guy talking to me? Wants to implement BSV or whatever.
Yeah.
So they were pretty happy. If I want to create a pull request, support BSV or whatever. And then so I took a look at their code, and basically it was to run it, you'd have to set up like a DigitalOcean droplet and then pull in all of the nodes. If you want to support BTC, Ethereum, or whatever, using Fura for Ethereum, but you'd have to basically run full nodes for everything just to use the wallet. And obviously I didn't want to do that and pay for DigitalOcean server just to send and receive, just to receive payments for a Bitcoin ATM. I considered using Handcash Connect as well, but anyway, I just should be very simple to do this. So I started writing this dummy wallet called PayD, which the idea was kind of to make it like Bitcoin D, but replace the Bitcoin RPC calls in the Bitcoin D wallet. And so then I started writing a couple of things to the code, and then made it working. I also had to rewrite kind of some of the AnyPay stuff because AnyPay was banned in Lebanon.
Oh, really? Why would Lebanon even know what AnyPay is? It's ridiculous.
No, it was AnyPay banned it for Lebanon.
Oh,
so,
interesting.
For money laundering, or I don't know. They had some stuff in the US or something with that they couldn't. So it wasn't that hard to rewrite. So I did that, and then you could send money with Handcash. You scan the QR code, and then I could accept the payments because Handcash already do the whole SPV like P2P stuff. But I'll get into the whole Paymail stuff afterwards. But basically I did that, and then at that time in Lebanon, they started taking exchangers to prison if they were exchanging like dollars for lira in the non-government rate. So sometimes people think they could just ignore economics and set prices or whatever, essentially plan all this stuff. But anyway, so I called off that project. I didn't want to sort of, if they're doing that for dollars and Lebanese lira, then adding in Bitcoin in there probably wasn't the best idea. So then, speaking to Andy and Steve, we got some funding from BA for this LiteClient project to build out a lot of these tools and stuff like that. And so kind of the biggest issue with the LiteClient, or obstacle, was like resourcing. So a lot of the stuff, we were doing it kind of part-time. It's not like because it's like for infrastructure, it's not like you can directly make money out of it or anything. So a lot of it was done part-time. We built on a bunch of libraries that we've been building for a couple of years in Go primarily. We've been building on those for a couple of years now. And I think, they're some of the top Bitcoin libraries in the space right now, and not many people actually know about it. We've been working on documentation, a lot of stuff, but there's a couple of, there's a bunch of companies involved. So we got Enchain, Tau, Tonic Pal guys, Tokenized, also getting involved now, the Murray brothers, even Daniel Krawitz got involved at one point, the Emperor.
Well, now it's definitely going to work.
Yeah. So yeah, we've built out a bunch of libraries and services and stuff, and that was kind of the goal of the initial phase of the LiteClient project, was to get a lot of these tools out and to basically work on a lot of the fragility in the infrastructure now. And then the next phases are, we want to focus on basically anyone who's unnecessarily running Bitcoin D as a wallet. So the Node team wanted to get rid of the wallet from Bitcoin D, because it doesn't make sense to be there. If you're mining, you're not going to use the Bitcoin D wallet. You're going to be
nobody. I don't know that any miners use the Bitcoin D wallet since like 2010.
You can't, because you have to connect to different ASIC machines, and you have to send out different payouts. You have to track the shares. You can't use the Bitcoin D wallet.
Right.
So the Node team wanted to remove it, and they didn't remove it because a lot of exchanges and people still use it, and we don't have an easy alternative. So next phases of LiteClient are, we want to get as much feedback on different people using Bitcoin D, and try to make it as frictionless and give them potential like replacements with Electrum SV primarily. So we're partnering with Electrum SV to be the main wallet. So a lot of the tools we started off with were just with this dummy PayD wallet, but we don't want to be maintaining this wallet and many different wallets. So we want to focus. We want to get something out there as quick as possible. Electrum SV is going to be the main focus at this stage.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Speaking of Electrum, I feel like Electrum's another thing that is like from an era that is, not really going to work long term in BSV either. But I think we have a lot of those sort of legacy things that people are used to working on, and they want things to work a certain way. Roger over at Electrum is always talking about, like, we're going to get rid of seed phrases because they don't scale. And, and there's some truth to a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, it's got to be baby steps. So I'm curious, a question here from Nate. What's the biggest use case for SPV right now? And I think I've given a couple examples, like your wallets and exchanges, but who else might want to run this in your opinion? You also mentioned the ATMs in your example, but
before I answer that question, I just wanted to link back to what you were saying about Electrum SV. I think there's huge potential for Electrum SV as, or anything as kind of like a enterprise wallet. We don't have anything that exists today. We built kind of something in Enchain in order to pay out employees in Bitcoin, which also, funnily enough, used Electron as a software. Basically, that doesn't really exist. We had to build it, and that was another source of issues that we had in the space, because not everyone does things in the best SPV way. Paymail as well. One thing is really important, I forgot to mention, which we kind of focused on with the LiteClient toolbox, is Paymail. And the earlier reference implementations of Paymail had Paymail really baked into the wallet. But if you look at Paymail, it's just very similar to like a DNS resolver. It shouldn't be baked into the wallet. It's just like a layer on top that you can use. And for example, for a lot of situations, Paymail is not needed. So if I'm scanning a QR code, for example, service discovery, which Paymail is for, is already done. I've already kind of discovered the service. So scanning the QR code will send me directly to, give me enough information to send me to the endpoint so I can contact you directly. You don't need to take a step back with Paymail and stuff like that. So this is something we focus on. Paymail should be like a DNS resolver, very slim service. So we also released like a reference implementation that's very simple.
Nice. Well, that's great, because I know that's been a complaint from a number of people, and really just specialization in general. Like I feel like so many tools are super monolithic, and this is something we inherited from Bitcoin Core and then ultimately Bitcoin Cash and all of that. But like I think that all of this stuff should be slimmed out, broken out. Like let businesses specialize, let businesses do what they do. And like you said, like nobody's used the wallet in Bitcoin D in probably 10 years, like literally nobody. And so like why are things so slow? Like why does it take so much time for people to break some of this stuff out? Because it's actually been a criticism in Paymail too, is it's like, well, yeah, it's the idea is great, but then there's all this other stuff. Like, why do we gotta have all the other stuff? And do you think we need these baby steps on things, or does it make sense for somebody, maybe yourself, you know, as the lead engineer over at Bitcoin Association, to say, hey, like, let's zoom out 3,000 feet and say, this is what the ecosystem really should look like, and really start to attack it? Like, does it make sense to maybe create a roadmap and let other people come in collaboratively and try to solve some of these problems like this?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a big thing is that everyone's focused on their product, and like, you know, they should be. No one's really spent a lot of time on the infrastructure that comes in. You know, it's not as high as a priority. So, for example, someone comes in, they want to build a Bitcoin sort of application or something like that. They're just going to use whatever is there, Paymail or, you know, whatever, and just get the job done. But so what we've been focusing on is making a lot of these tools, you know, a lot more robust, so that you come in and then instead of using whatever is there, that thing that's there would be a lot more robust, for example. Yeah.
For sure.
So one thing I wanted to mention as well, which a lot of people overlook, or if they've forgotten or something like that, which was really became a lot clearer when we were working on this project, is how important proof of work is for scaling an SDV. So when we were writing a lot of the code for this stuff, we were just, you know, stopping at points, you know, thinking like, shit, how the fuck would we do this if it was like on proof of stake? It's like so tough for a lot of this stuff. So if you think, for example, if you want to have a chain of block headers, the way you would do it with proof of work and Bitcoin is you just have the header, you get the block header and you hash it. If it's below a target, then it's a valid, you know, based on the difficulty adjustment and everything. But, you know, essentially you hash it, it's lower than a target, it's a valid block. So you can objectively reach the same, you know, longest chain state from just hashing the blocks, and it's really quick. If you had like proof of stake, you know, how do you verify that that's a valid block? You have to know the stakers' private key, their public keys. They have to sign. You have to track that all the way down. You can just start thinking about these things, right? It's a lot more difficult, you know, a lot more security challenges. And this is something that people, you know, don't really credit proof of work with.
No, for sure. I think one of the other things, so we've talked a lot about sort of infrastructure stuff, and I've seen a couple people commenting about like Mappy and some other things too in the comments. I'm curious how you see all of these services. It's sort of connected to my previous thought, like what should the whole ecosystem look like? You know, the way that some of this stuff has been implemented, again, is like, it's a good idea, and then maybe the implementation isn't the best, or maybe even the implementation is good, but the way that people use it is just wrong. And you and I actually had this conversation in private where you were talking about like how to send transactions to the node, and like people lean on the node too hard, and then they complain that the node is poorly implemented, which, you know, is all that's a bunch of opinion stuff, whether or not the node is good or bad. But how, like, how can we get to the point where people can really start on a road and say, okay, I want to build a business on Bitcoin, and therefore I should start with tool set X and implement it like Y, and you know, and make it that, okay, I'm not in an infrastructural malaise. Like, I'm actually building my business and like, hey, maybe one day we get 50 million transactions because we just had a really good day in business, and like, it didn't make the whole network, you know, it didn't freak everybody out and break stuff, because you know, we keep talking about Bitcoin scales, and it does, but it doesn't scale if you you know, abuse it, basically. So like, how do we sorry, it's a long and kind of a pain in the ass question.
So you know, Bitcoin is designed to be hard to abuse anyway. So if people nodes or stuff are running things properly, then it's hard to abuse it. But if they do things in not the best way, they're opening themselves up to a lot of risks that maybe it's not the best idea for some things. And so this is not really LiteClient related, but it's more BA related. And something we really want to work on is to try and get as much feedback as we can from the rest of the the ecosystem and the current infrastructure, so that we could bridge a lot of these gaps and plug in a lot of these holes that have been missing, and that will kind of take the infrastructure to the next level. So if anyone has anything, definitely reach out to me. And also for resourcing on the LiteClient, it's getting a lot more interest right now, and it's getting clear how important it is. So we need a lot more resources. So if anyone's interested, definitely reach out to me afterwards. Yeah.
Where's the best place to reach out to you? And I know there's now the BSV Discord, and there's some other places, but where would you prefer to be pinged?
This is a tough question. So many different tools.
Right.
I don't know. I guess try one of the tools. If I don't reply, try another one. If I see, I will reply. Yeah,
for sure. No, I don't know. I tell people, like, just DM me on Twitter. I'm gonna check my Twitter in the morning probably. Yeah. So here's a good question, and I think this is a compliment to you, actually. You have been more responsive to the public criticism of nChain and BA not being open, collaborating with devs, and interested in contributing. Is this criticism valid? And if so, what are the changes?
I think one thing we want to focus on is to be a lot more agile and to have more sort of, ears on the ground, just to get a lot of this feedback. It's not easy to, everyone's in their own silos and focusing on a lot of this stuff. And it's not an easy job to find out the pain points that different people have. Everyone's in their own bubble and a lot of stuff. And so we want to focus on that. And one thing we want to do as well is to try to get things released as quick as possible, so that we can get feedback and have more of an agile and iterative approach to things.
No, absolutely. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about you in general, but just, getting to know you and working with you on stuff. It's been, a long while of like, how do I ask the node team, and that kind of thing. And, I discovered, it took me months to even realize that there was like a node team Telegram, like, help channel. And I was like, oh, is that advertised anywhere? Because, because a lot of people, people just don't know, but I think,
definitely. I think, a lot of the issues are communication issues and language. This way we go back to naming. Everyone has their the different way of speaking. For example, engineers have their own sort of language, not exactly language, it's still English or whatever, but they have their own way of communicating, the business side and all that stuff. So even the research side, for a lot, it's not an easy job to try and bridge the gaps and kind of be like a translator for these different silos.
For sure. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure, was there anything that you wanted to be sure to cover? Anybody that deserves, like, maybe shout outs or, hey, thanks for X, Y, and Z? But like, what do you want people to walk away with when they finish watching the show and say, oh, thank God Jad has taught us about what?
So the main thing is, to try and get a lot of this stuff out there for everyone to be on the same page, and sort of rowing in the same direction, instead of everyone, in their own sort of bubble, pushing in different directions. If we're all aligned on the same page and everyone's using the same tools properly, or, doing things, everyone understands what other people are doing properly, we can move a lot quicker and get things done. So definitely we want to get everything we've been working on out there and try to collaborate with as many people as possible. So open to any collaborations. If anyone wants to get involved, please reach out to me.
No, absolutely. And I think it's crucial for people to understand that, like, look at the people who are generating transactions on the blockchain today. Like crypto fights, well, not today, but in the last month or so, crypto fights is in a retooling phase at the moment, but like they
Yeah.
came from Ethereum. They tried to launch their stuff on Ethereum. They went down like, here's where games should be built on ETH, and here's this token protocol, and here's all this other stuff, and like their business just could not possibly work for technical reasons on Ethereum. And it really took just having information out there for people to say that, hey, Bitcoin is actually capable of this. And ultimately their lead dev, David Case, came to my BSV meetup and was like, oh, okay, like you're real people. This seems like a good thing. Like I'm going to retool my entire business to run on BSV. And they're not the only case of that. There's a lot of people who have left ETH and other projects because they need that scale. They can't just, have 15 transactions a second and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, definitely. I think visibility is something that has improved a lot in the early days of like BSV and stuff. And no one knew anything. It's just a fake Toshi coin. This is the
right.
I have a lot of like BTC friends still in Lebanon, and one of them actually thinks Craig is like a state actor sent to destroy Bitcoin or something like that.
Yeah.
It's completely different when you have a conversation with someone and it's not just on Twitter where they see things out of context and all this stuff, and you can talk to real people. And so back to what you were saying, definitely a big shout out to the whole team. So it's definitely not a single effort. It's a big team involved in everything we're working on. So not a lot of people, not always on Twitter and on these things, so you won't really see them. If you go to GitHub, you can see the commit history and all that stuff.
Right.
But, so there's a lot of people that don't really get involved in a lot of the politics, and thankfully it's not really that relevant anymore.
Yeah, no, I think, a good example of that, and granted, I'm one of the people that does debate with people on Twitter because it's, partially I like it, but but like I've had a couple of conversations recently where, it's like, Kurt, how can you get yourself so tangled up into this fake Toshi scam and all this stuff? And I'm like, we can have that conversation, but can we start by agreeing that the most scalable layer 1 blockchain on earth is BSV? And they're just like, well, no, how could it be? And it's like, I won't go down their roadmap until we actually talk about why BSV. Like let's have a conversation about whether or not like the car drives, right? And so it's an interesting.
It's much easier now than it used to be, and it's like if you just have a normal conversation, people can realize you're not a scammer. Like where is the scam? Are we asking anyone for money? We don't even have BSV doesn't even have an ICO. Like there's no fundraising. There's nothing. Where's the scam, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. And I just want to give you some congratulations and some praise for helping us do that and for working on this tooling. I mean, documentation is like, I would rather do anything than sit and do documentation on software. So thank you for that. And thank you for leading the team. And really, I think thanks are deserved to Degan and some of the other people that you're working with on this stuff too. Now let's see. Let's take another question while we're at it. Jad, what tools, features, or businesses would you like to personally see added to the BSV ecosystem? What do we need?
One thing I would like to see is the enterprise-like wallet to be able to easily, just track a lot of this stuff. I feel like it's, everyone should kind of specialize in different things. It's, I don't think it's the best strategy to kind of do everything. So I would definitely like to see people specializing in specific things. And, the pie is really small, that will only grow the pie. What else would I like to see? Definitely a lot more collaboration on the libraries. So we've been spending a bunch of time on that. I think there's also some work being done with some newer libraries in Rust and So it's really, really refreshing to see there.
Yeah.
I just think, once we set this, the groundwork for this foundation with LiteClient and stuff, I think it'll take like a year or so, just to set that layer down. And then, if things are working in the right SPV way, then there's no risk of anything breaking, regardless how big the blockchain gets. If we're doing things in the right way, that risk is gone.
Brilliant. Jad, I would love to have you on regularly. If I could maybe get you on, like, maybe not once a month, but maybe once a month. But every time there's like an update or something that you want to share to the world, I would love to have a special with you.
Sure.
We can even
Alex
do the Tuesday regular live stream, but
yeah, Alex was telling me about it, but I was thinking of going to the office building today, but yeah, Alex would definitely take the piss out of me if I was doing this there.
Always. So cool, man. I think we're good there. So Jad, thank you for your time. And
all right, thanks for having me on, Kurt.
For sure. Looking forward to our next chat. So everybody, that was Jad Wabab. Really good guy. I've had the opportunity to work with him now a few times on some stuff. Really just kind of like, if I have a question, he'll walk me through it. And that's been a really helpful thing. So I think a crucial thing going forward, like, pay attention to the new posture of Bitcoin associations, teams that are focusing on very specific things. I think for a long time, there's been a lot of people that have been, I don't know, basically doing things the way that they want to do them, rather than maybe going where the puck is going to be, right? And so I'm really excited to see guys like Jad take a really proactive step forward. I also should give a shout out to Patrick Prinz and a couple of guys, both named Marcin, and then Martin Coxel over there. And there's a handful of other people at Bitcoin Association that are trying to sort of retailer everything to work the way that the community needs it to work in order to make real progress, both technically and from a business standpoint, and to really make the progress that we've needed to be doing for years. And it's not a criticism of how things were done in the past. I think the goals were different. We've been through a big market cycle and been through, frankly, another wing of the Bitcoin civil war. And there's a lot of people that really deserve to be praised and thanked, but also deserve to have a little bit of a break while, some people newer in the ranks bear the mantle and take the torch forward a little bit. And so I'm excited to be working with these people in the BSV economy. And I ask you to please be brave to be to jump into, like, put pressure on each other, build a business that maybe you were afraid to build 2 years ago. The tooling is there. Maybe it wasn't there. Just a year ago, there weren't NFTs on BSV. There wasn't an AMM DEX anywhere. There were not various trading tools. The wallets were much less robust. Twetch was still really janky to use at the time, and now it's like you jump into something like Twetch and you see, like, oh wow, my NFTs are all here and the Twetch wallet's really nice, and oh, Handcash has 50 apps in it now instead of 3. There's tools for interacting with people, for creating businesses that you couldn't create. Now there's a big NFT launch basically every day on RelayX, and then you see stuff on Rare Candy that's launching and they're making $100,000 in a 2-hour span. And so there are all of a sudden these big opportunities to make big chunks of money by doing the things that you weren't able to do a year ago. There's a million other people that deserve shout outs. CentBee allows you to actually spend your money at retail all the time, everywhere. The Handcash top-ups are here now. You can just buy BSV with your credit card through the Handcash wallet. There was just PR today that IBM is co-launching a cybersecurity tool with CertaHash, the people over at Smart Ledger, to just make network security more robust with NIST standards, but using BSV as the background or the backbone of it. And so all of this stuff is made possible by people that keep focus, you keep going forward. Like, we could pivot to all kinds of things. Like, you get all these people pressuring you, just pivot to X, or N-Chain's not doing their job right, or Bitcoin Association's not doing this and that, or whatever. Like you hear these criticisms from everybody. And the fact of the matter is that you are an economic participant. And if you put real pressure and not just, trolling on Twitter, I mean, like you have a business that could be more successful if you had better tooling, then it allows you to say like, hey, I could really use a Rust library for this thing, and it would make my business more flexible, more profitable, more whatever. We've seen this now in the economy. We've seen Tal and the other honest nodes in the ecosystem lower the relay fee or eliminate the relay fees, lower the dust fees, all this stuff. And this is a response to the demand that we are creating. So I want to remind you before I leave, you are powerful. We are powerful as individual peoples, and Bitcoin allows us to flex that power globally. It allows us to interact with people just as easily in South Korea as you could in South Carolina. And it doesn't matter how far away you are when you started. So everybody, thank you so much. This has been a special edition CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I am Kurt Wuckert Jr., both Hawaiian and extra bald today because I shaved my head last night. So everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. I want to thank my wife for keeping the kids quiet and for everything else that goes on. Thank you, Alex. Well, no, they're screaming. Thank you, Alex Moon, for making it all possible. Thank you to the people asking questions. And thank you to you, the viewer, for tuning in and making these shows possible. I appreciate it. My closing thought, don't forget to be good to each other. Take care.
This May, in Dubai, the BSV Global Blockchain Convention will bring together communities and unveil new breakthrough technologies. You'll be ushered into a world of collaboration and innovation where you can network with hundreds of expert practitioners, pioneer thinkers, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs. Learn from forward-thinking brands and startups. Discover functional applications that enhance end-user experiences and create value and utility. The BSV Global Blockchain Convention is your gateway to engaging with scalable on-chain solutions and building long-lasting business partnerships. Turn ideas into reality. Propel your business forward. Join us at the BSV Global Blockchain Convention, May 24 to 26 in Dubai.